Israeli intelligence services have spied upon and sought to intimidate the ICC, and that has gone on for many years. But are the allegations themselves by Sarah and by a second woman who also came forward to The Guardian last year, who had a similar set of allegations against Khan about his conduct towards her early in his career, are the underlying allegations fabricated by the Israelis? And there's a distinction to be made here between the allegations themselves, the underlying allegations and claims that these women have made, with the way in which Israel and pro-Israeli actors, which include the current Trump administration, have sought to instrumentalize and weaponize, exploit this situation, because they don't like the fact that Khan made this huge decision to seek arrest warrants for sitting Israeli Prime Minister. And that distinction is something that I think some people have struggled to make. But it is. There are two things to be true here.
Because they promoted the story doesn't mean they created the story, but they might have created the story.
Seeking to exert a great deal of pressure on the court with the US in a very aggressive
cross-reference it with Graham.
It's also true that these allegations are serious, credible, and warrant a great deal of scrutiny, and they have now been subject to a great deal of scrutiny through the course of this UN watchdog, and they've gone through this disciplinary process. And this disciplinary process, it is fair to say, has been somewhat ad hoc and drawn out, convoluted, and has raised a great deal of concerns about the way in which states may or not be using it in order to remove Khan, because they also don't like the decisions he made, prosecutorial decisions he made in relation to Israel and Palestine.
Let me ask you this. So Karim Khan has to be replaced now. What's that process going to be like?
There has to be a new election. The ICC prosecutor is elected by all member states, so there will be a process. It's unclear exactly when that will be, but for now, the prosecutor's office, which is a division of the court, has about 400 staff. It's like the kind of engine room of the court that is investigating and working on these cases. That is currently being led by Khan's two deputy prosecutors. They are also elected officials. They have been running the court, this organ of the court, the prosecutor's office, for more than a year now, because Khan had previously stepped away and then he was then suspended. So it's in their hands for now, but there will need to be an election. One of those two candidates may run. They may decide that they want the top job. But some of the people I've spoken to in the court also feel that that now might be the time for a fresh start with a new face and to bring in someone new. That person, whoever it is, will need to be able to be a custodian of the prosecutor's office and manage it through this exceptionally challenging time, probably the most challenging moment the court has ever encountered.
Isn't Marco Rubio and Donica Petinsky and Vladimir Putin going to war against the ICT
Harry
too?
Davies is an investigative correspondent with The Guardian. That tape of Sarah, the woman who accused Karim Khan, is from an excellent interview that Christiane Amanpour conducted for CNN. When we come back, Marco Rubio on the warpath and the ICC in his crosshairs.
Yeah, that's that part of the story. Warpath, little Marco Rubio.
Less than half of Americans have up-to-date estate plans. CPR's Legacy Circle members do, and their foresight helps protect Colorado Public Radio's future. Join the Legacy Circle. Start with
Marco Hello. How are you?
Today Explained is back, this time with former Ambassador Beth Van Schok. She advised the State Department on global criminal justice, which makes her something of an expert on the ICC.
Well, it's an institution that I've studied for many years. I led an NGO delegation in the 1990s that participated in the drafting of the court, and then I've studied it ever since. I've also been in government. My most recent role was as ambassador at large for global criminal justice. And so my office was essentially the liaison between the United States and a whole host of international justice institutions, but including the International Criminal Court.
If the International Criminal Court is charged with dealing with people who have allegedly done very bad things and then trying them and determining if they have done very bad things. Why is the United States not a member?
The United States
we do really
signed
bad
the
things.
treaty in the waning days of the Clinton administration, but never submitted it to ratification for the Senate. And one of the concerns is that the final treaty allows for jurisdiction over individuals who may commit crimes on the territory of states parties. And the United States has always been concerned about that principle because we have troop commitments, and there's a very strong belief that U.S. service members should enjoy all of the protections of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Now, supporters of the court have always said,
mean you get to do war crimes?
The United States and its personnel are vulnerable regardless of whether you join, right? If U.S. personnel are committing crimes on the territory of state parties, which we saw in Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is a state party member. The U.S. personnel, most notably members of the Central Intelligence Agency, committed what President Obama called torture in Afghanistan. And so that conduct was potentially vulnerable to be brought before the ICC. The response is then, of course, do those cases domestically, and there'll be no occasion for the International Criminal Court to consider those matters.
Gosh, sorry about my speakers.
There have been peaks and valleys in the relationship between the ICC and the United States. So we're in a valley, a frankly pretty deep valley right now, with this new campaign that Secretary Rubio announced a week or so ago. But back in the Bush administration, there was also very acute concern, and it stemmed from this Afghanistan investigation. So then the Bush administration and also Congress both put in place measures that they thought would be protective of U.S. service members. So that was one kind of interesting is in the second term of the Bush administration. Many of these measures were dismantled because the Bush administration realized that the court was doing important work in some areas where it also cared about justice, and in particular Darfur.
And I promise this to the people of Darfur. The United States will not avert our eyes from a crisis that challenged the conscience of the world.
Then the Obama administration announced a reset in its relationship with the court, and that's where I entered the picture. I was deputy in the office that I later led as ambassador in the next Democratic administration. So at that point, the Obama administration directed across the various executive agencies to look for ways to support the court where the work that it was doing was consistent with U.S. policy in those particular situation countries.
It was created, and the idea of international justice was created for those extraordinary circumstances in which you see a leader operating in ways that is so contrary to international norms and basic beliefs that we have about the dignity of people, that the international community sees the need to speak and to render judgment.
Then we had the first Trump administration, which reversed course almost immediately, eventually opposed sanctions on senior figures, including the prosecutor herself. There was the previous prosecutor and one of her key aides.
As far as America is concerned, the ICC has no jurisdiction, no legitimacy, and no authority.
Then we get to the Biden-Harris administration. They pulled down those sanctions and again launched a reset of the relationship. And at that point, there were a number of situations where the court was working, including following the brutal war of aggression by Russia against Ukraine. And here we saw a remarkable rise of bipartisan support for the work of the court. You had senior Republican figures in Congress supporting the court. The late Lindsey Graham led a resolution that was supporting justice in Ukraine.
There is no rule of law in Russia to hold Putin accountable, so this international tribunal is the right way to go.
Secretary Rubio, then Senator Rubio, joined that resolution. There was new legislation passed that made it easier for the United States to support the work of the court. And then, of course, with the second Trump administration,
you become the war criminals
again, and in particular with Rubio's announcement.
But as we speak, the ICC and its friends are waging a war against our country.
No, against Trump. It's not our country.
But with statutes, compacts, and the force of so-called international law.
So-called.
Well,
That's
let's talk
real
about
international law.
So Secretary of State Marco Rubio is at one point on board with the ICC, and then recently he
49
more
Toto.
or less vows to dismantle it.
If they believe they can deprive us of our sovereignty,
Nobody's doing that.
the full meaning of American resolve.
Shut
What
up,
happened
dude.
here?
Trying to say
It's not
resolve.
clear what the precipitating
Like your damn
event
Bush.
is, to be
He ain't no
honest.
Bush.
There is no existential threat
There's
at
Xanadu
present.
4.
Obviously, there's always the concern that this is some kind of a distraction because matters are not going well in Iran and with respect to the economy. And so this is something to sort of pull eyeballs away from those matters onto
Their
something
distractions are
that he
also
can sort of
real.
look tough in terms of
Like-
being America first, etc., which
things they're really
ultimately
doing.
results in being America alone rather than America first necessarily.
Well, America First is a
So,
Klan
It's
statement.
not clear what the
In
precipitating
real
event
America.
is.
Anything. Ask his wife.
Travel bans, etc. The chief prosecutor and two of his two deputies have been sanctioned. Non-governmental organizations that are involved in human rights in Palestine have been sanctioned, and a UN figure.
Oh my
has been
gosh.
sanctioned.
Why
Now,
are you
that
doing
process
this?
is already in place. What his most recent
Dude, the
campaign
Jasmine
seems to
Abdul
announce
thing is
is
supposedly
some kind
from
of a
May.
diplomatic move to try and convince states to leave the court. or
My
to
thoughts
cease
are
their
you
cooperation
can't
with the
support
court.
genocide.
And we have seen
This
in
isn't
several
nuanced,
recent
dude.
days, a couple of
Abdul's
states
against
announcing
genocide.
that
Graham
they will
Plattner's
send
against
states in
genocide.
Africa, but also Venezuela, which is subject to investigation.
Whose
by
side are
the
you
prosecutor's
on?
office. The United States can
Are you
certainly
on
enter the court, but
genocide?
there's no way that we could dismantle the court.
All right, so we have an institution, the ICC, that for the most part, I think, for most people, flies under the radar. And at this moment, it is in the center of several really big news cycles. This is a lot of drama for a body that for a long time seems to have avoided a ton of very public drama. So who gets hurt in all of this? Is it the court? Is it the U.S.?
And then they talk in very unconvincing and just, this is some guy you pay millions of dollars to represent you. What is it?
So she's saying it's